Did you know Mali is Africa's third largest gold producer, yet nearly half of its population lives below the poverty line? It's a contradiction that exposes the ugly reality of resource exploitation. While Mali's soil glitters with gold, the wealth it generates has done little for its people. Instead, foreign corporations have mined the riches and shipped the benefits overseas. But change is in the air. In a stunning move, Mali's interim leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, arrested the CEO of Resolute Mining, an Australian company accused of exploiting the nation's resources. This wasn't just about enforcing a mining law, it was a declaration of sovereignty, a challenge to the Western dominance that has bled Africa dry for decades. The move has left the West reeling. How dare an African nation challenge the status quo? But for Mali, this is about more than gold. It's about reclaiming its dignity and rewriting its future. How did we get to this moment? Let's find out. So, why did Mali dare to arrest an Australian mining giant's CEO? The arrest of Resolute Mining's CEO wasn't just a headline-grabbing move. It was the culmination of years of pent-up frustration and blatant exploitation. To understand why Mali took such a bold step, you must first examine how foreign companies have long operated in the country. For decades, these corporations treated Mali's gold mines as personal treasure troves, extracting immense wealth while giving back crumbs. The terms of their agreements were so lopsided that Mali might as well have been handing over its gold for free. Imagine this. A foreign corporation walks into a gold-rich country, stakes a claim, and walks out with nearly all the profits, leaving behind poverty-stricken communities and hollow promises of development. That's precisely how Resolute Mining and other companies operated in Mali. The exploitation wasn't hidden. It was glaring, unapologetic, and systemic. Contracts were designed to favor the companies, offering them majority control over mining operations while saddling Mali with minimal revenue. Let's put this into perspective. Resolute Mining, like other foreign companies, enjoyed outrageous privileges under Mali's outdated mining code. They controlled up to 80% of mining projects, paying laughably low taxes while shipping the lion's share of profits overseas, straight to Australia. Meanwhile, Mali's government struggled to fund essential services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. The disparity was glaring. Schools were left in disrepair, hospitals lacked supplies, and roads crumbled, while millions in gold profits fueled luxury lifestyles thousands of miles away. This wasn't an isolated issue. Resolute Mining operated in the same way as many others, treating Mali not as a partner, but as a resource colony. Barrick Gold and others were equally guilty of taking advantage of the same skewed agreements. For decades, the message was clear. Mali's wealth was up for grabs, and no one would stop them. Until now. Colonel Assimi Goïta decided that enough was enough. Under his leadership, Mali introduced a sweeping new mining code. This wasn't just a minor adjustment, it was a direct challenge to the status quo. The new rules demanded higher taxes, required the government to hold a greater stake in mining projects, and imposed stricter compliance standards on foreign companies. For the first time in decades, Mali was asserting its sovereignty over its resources. Resolute Mining's refusal to comply was the final straw. The company underestimated the new Mali, believing it could continue business as usual, ignoring the reforms and the growing public demand for accountability. But Goïta wasn't bluffing. His government acted decisively, arresting Resolute Mining's CEO in a dramatic display of authority. It wasn't just about enforcing the law. It was about reclaiming Mali's dignity and sending a message to the world. Exploitation would no longer be tolerated. This arrest was about far more than one man or one company. It was a symbolic act, a rallying cry for justice and equity. By targeting such a high-profile figure, Goïta made it clear that no corporation, no matter how powerful, would be allowed to undermine Mali's sovereignty. The move sent shockwaves through the mining sector, forcing other foreign investors to sit up and take notice. For years, foreign corporations had treated Mali as a safe bet, a place where they could extract resources with minimal consequences. That illusion has been shattered. Goïta's bold move has set a precedent, one that could ripple across Africa. Companies are now rethinking their strategies, wondering if other nations might follow Mali's lead. But the arrest isn't just a turning point for foreign investors. It's a moment of reckoning for Mali. It's about rewriting decades of economic injustice and ensuring that the country's immense wealth finally benefits its people. For Goïta, it's not just about gold. It's about the future of Mali and its rightful place in the global economy. But his arrest was not enough to show how serious Mali is about this situation. So, what happened afterwards? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. The detention of Terry Holohan, CEO of Resolute Mining, and two other executives on November 8th set off a whirlwind of negotiations and corporate scrambling. While the arrest itself was headline-grabbing, the events that unfolded afterward revealed the complex dynamics between the Malian government and foreign mining corporations. For Mali, this was more than a legal issue. It was a test of its resolve to reclaim sovereignty over its gold industry. After the arrest, Resolute Mining found itself in a precarious position. The company's leadership team was detained under charges of forgery and vandalism, serious accusations that carried significant legal and reputational risks. The executives had been in Mali to address an ongoing tax dispute, but their detention escalated the situation into an international crisis. Industry insiders speculated that the charges were a strategic move by the Malian government to pressure the company into compliance with its broader reforms. For Resolute, the detention created an immediate operational and financial emergency. In the days following the arrests, Resolute Mining's stock value plummeted as investors reacted to the unfolding drama. The company was forced into urgent negotiations with the Malian junta, knowing that the resolution of the crisis was not just a matter of freeing its executives, but also preserving its ability to operate in the country. The talks were intense and high stakes, as both sides knew the implications extended beyond this one incident. For Mali, it was about enforcing accountability and demonstrating its control over the mining sector. For Resolute, it was about damage control and survival. The turning point came when Resolute agreed to a financial settlement with the Malian government. The deal, finalized on November 20th, 2024, required the company to pay $160 million, including an initial $80 million payment, and the remaining amount to be paid from the company's liquidity sources in the coming months. This settlement was tied to allegations of unpaid taxes, which had been uncovered during a sector-wide audit initiated by the junta. For Mali, the settlement was a major victory, both financially and symbolically. It demonstrated that the government would no longer tolerate tax evasion and exploitation by foreign corporations. As part of the agreement, a Memorandum of Understanding (MOU) was signed to formalize the terms of the settlement. This document also likely outlined conditions for Resolute's continued operations in Mali, ensuring compliance with the country's new mining code. While the exact details of the MOU remain undisclosed, it's clear that the company had little choice but to acquiesce to the government's demands. The release of Holohan and his colleagues followed shortly after the agreement was reached, bringing an end to their 12-day detention. The executives wasted no time departing Mali. Their release marked the resolution of the immediate crisis, but the incident left behind a trail of questions and challenges for Resolute Mining. Could the company continue to operate in Mali under these new conditions? Would this settlement set a precedent for similar disputes with other corporations? And most importantly, what does this mean for Mali's broader campaign to reclaim control over its resources? For the Malian government, the aftermath of the settlement was a moment of triumph. The $160 million deal was not just a financial windfall, it was a declaration of power, a signal to other mining companies that the rules had changed. The junta's ability to extract such a significant settlement from a major foreign corporation showcased its commitment to enforcing its new vision for the mining sector. For foreign companies, however, the incident was a sobering reminder of the risks of operating in politically volatile regions. While Resolute Mining managed to secure the release of its executives, the financial and reputational costs were immense. Other mining giants, such as Barrick Gold, are undoubtedly paying close attention, recognizing that Mali's actions could signal a broader trend across Africa. The release of the executives may have closed this chapter, but the story is far from over. The case has redefined the relationship between Mali and its foreign investors, establishing a new precedent for accountability and state control in the mining industry. For Resolute Mining and others, the message is clear. The era of unchecked exploitation in Mali is over. But does this incident explain why Mali is losing billions even after sitting on gold? The arrest of Resolute Mining's CEO and the subsequent $160 million settlement highlight a glaring truth about Mali's gold industry. The country's immense wealth hasn't translated into prosperity for its people. This incident is not an isolated event. It's a symptom of deeper systemic issues that have allowed foreign corporations to profit while Mali's economy remains stagnant. Understanding this disconnect requires peeling back the layers of how Mali's gold sector has been managed and exploited over the years. Mali is Africa's third-largest gold producer, exporting roughly 70 tons annually. This accounts for 75% of the country's exports, 25% of its budget, and 10% of its GDP. Yet, despite these impressive figures, nearly half of Mali's population lives in poverty, struggling to access necessities like healthcare, education, and clean water. This paradox, the coexistence of immense natural wealth and widespread poverty, is rooted in a system designed to benefit foreign corporations at the expense of Mali's development. One of the primary culprits is the structure of mining agreements. For decades, Mali operated under a mining code that heavily favored foreign investors. Companies like Resolute Mining were granted majority stakes in gold projects, sometimes as high as 80%, while paying minimal taxes. These agreements were designed to attract investment, but came at the cost of Mali's sovereignty over its resources. The revenue that should have been reinvested into the country's infrastructure and social programs instead flowed overseas, lining the pockets of corporate shareholders. Beyond the contracts themselves, the practices of these corporations have exacerbated the issue. Multinational companies often engage in tactics like transfer pricing, where profits are shifted to tax havens to minimize local tax obligations. This legal but ethically questionable practice allows companies to significantly underreport their earnings in Mali, depriving the government of much-needed revenue. Additionally, there have been allegations of underreported production and overinflated operational costs, further reducing the taxable income available to Mali. The detention of Resolute Mining's executives shines a spotlight on these practices. The company's settlement of $160 million was tied to back taxes uncovered during a sector-wide audit initiated by the Malian government. While this settlement is a step toward accountability, it also underscores how much money has already been lost. The $160 million Resolute agreed to pay is only a fraction of what may have been siphoned away over the years, not just by Resolute, but by other companies operating under similar arrangements. Another issue is the lack of oversight and enforcement in the gold sector. For years, Mali's regulatory bodies were either too weak or too compromised to hold corporations accountable. Corruption and inefficiency within the government allowed foreign companies to operate with impunity, exploiting loopholes and evading scrutiny. The military junta's recent reforms aim to address these gaps, but undoing decades of damage will not be easy. Furthermore, Mali's reliance on gold exports makes its economy vulnerable to fluctuations in global gold prices. While gold is a lucrative resource, it cannot sustain the country's economic needs alone. Diversifying the economy is essential to reducing dependency on foreign mining companies, but this requires significant investment in education, agriculture, and other sectors. Investments that have been historically neglected due to the siphoning of mining revenue. This incident also highlights the global power dynamics that perpetuate the exploitation of resource-rich countries. Foreign corporations, backed by the legal and financial frameworks of their home countries, often wield significant influence over local governments. If you think the giants are in the wrong for exploiting Mali, just wait. What's next will leave you speechless. Mali's mining giants are accused of aiding insurgents. Mali's mining sector is located in some of the most dangerous regions of the Sahel. This area has been a battleground for insurgent groups, with attacks on villages, government facilities, and civilians becoming a grim routine. Yet, mining operations seem to carry on without interruption. How is this possible? The answer might lie in a troubling pattern that's been observed in other conflict zones: deals between corporations and armed groups. In many parts of the world, corporations operating in unstable regions have been accused of paying off militant groups to secure their operations. Could the same be happening in Mali? It's not a stretch to imagine. Mining companies have a lot to lose if their operations are disrupted, and armed groups have a lot to gain from such arrangements. By leaving mining sites untouched, insurgents maintain a flow of resources while focusing their attacks elsewhere. If this is true, the implications are staggering. It would mean that the very companies profiting from Mali's wealth are also contributing to its instability. This would perpetuate a vicious cycle. Chaos keeps the government weak. A weak government allows exploitation, and exploitation fuels more chaos. Colonel Goïta's leadership aims to break this cycle. By asserting control over the mining sector, he's not just fighting economic exploitation, he's also challenging the conditions that enable insecurity. But this fight isn't just Mali's. The lessons here are vital for the rest of Africa, where similar patterns of exploitation and instability exist. Mali's actions are more than just a national victory. They're a blueprint for other African nations. Across the continent, resource-rich countries face the same challenges: exploitative contracts, weak governance, and foreign companies that profit at the expense of local communities. But Colonel Goïta's leadership proves that change is possible, even in the face of powerful opposition. Take Senegal, for example. Inspired by Mali's reforms, the country has begun revisiting its oil and gas contracts. This could mark the start of a broader movement across Africa, where nations demand fair treatment from foreign investors. The key lesson here is that sovereignty isn't just about laws, it's about leadership. Goïta's willingness to challenge the West sets a precedent that other leaders can follow. But reclaiming resources isn't just an economic issue. It's a matter of dignity and self-determination. Africa's wealth has long been a source of exploitation, first through colonialism and now through multinational corporations. By taking bold steps like arresting CEOs and rewriting contracts, African nations can finally begin to control their destinies. The path won't be easy. Western powers and their corporate allies won't give up without a fight. But Mali's actions show that with strong leadership and a clear vision, it's possible to challenge the status quo. The question is, will other African nations rise to the occasion? Now, you know Mali's arrest of Resolute Mining CEO is more than just a bold political move. It's a declaration of independence from decades of exploitation. It is not just a threat to the West, but also to insurgents. By enforcing new mining codes and holding foreign corporations accountable, Colonel Goïta is setting an example that could reshape the future of Africa. For now, one thing is certain: the winds of change are blowing across Africa, and they carry the promise of justice, sovereignty, and hope. Do you think there is an escape from the well-based mining giants in Africa? Is there an escape after the whole Africa unites? Let us know in the comment section. Where do the ethics go when these nations come to Africa? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.